Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bloom Conversations. I'm Claire Dewhirst. I'm the Director of City Nation Place, which is the global forum for place branding and place marketing. I'm honoured that Bloom Consulting has invited me to join these podcast sessions just to introduce the discussions. I see my job as asking the questions on behalf of you to ensure that we learn the most from the Bloom experts and their guest speakers. This podcast series has been launched to celebrate Bloom's 20th anniversary. Happy birthday, Bloom. And throughout the series, we'll be diving into the world of nation branding and place branding. In each episode, we'll be looking at just one thing you could focus on to improve your nation or place brand strategy. In fact, in each episode, we'll be focusing on one of the 14 steps that Bloom have identified as being crucial to building an effective strategy. So just one thing today and 14 things over the series of conversations. This time, we're going to be looking at Nation Branding 2.0, or the digital identity and reputation of your nation or place brand. I'm delighted to be joined by José Torres again, who is, as we all know, the CEO of Bloom Consulting. And very appropriately, our guest this week is Liina Lepik, who is responsible for the international reputation and internationalization of the brand of Estonia, working with Enterprise Estonia. And those of you who are not so new to place branding will know that Estonia has such a strong reputation in the digital sphere. We're delighted to have Liina with us. Welcome, Liina. Welcome, José. Let's start with you, José. What do you mean by nation brand 2.0, and what do you mean by digital identity?
Thank you, Claire. This is a topic that we have started at Bloom Consulting. We started heavily in 2015. And the first time this was published was in my book in 2019. So when I introduced the theme of Nation Branding 2.0, is exactly what you mentioned, which is the digital identity of nations. This is something that countries, regions, and cities needed. We understood that the digital identity would play a very important role in building and contributing to the reputation and to the perception of countries, regions, and cities, of places in general, right? So this is a topic that nations and cities need to look into and manage it with a specific approach. So this is something that is not, it's just digital. Yes, of course, we can take care of our digital image and social media and so on. But it's something that is very important because, what happens online will stay online forever, right? Today, we also saw that, if anyone wants to know about countries, or even if they don't want to know about countries or cities, they are influenced by what they see online. But also if they are proactively interested about countries, regions, or a specific city, they search. And they search now with AI tools as well. And that digital identity, that equity is there and needs to be managed, or at least nations need to look at this carefully and manage this with a very professional eye.
Thank you. And I'm pleased because as you started to talk, I was thinking about the impact that AI is having on digital identity as well. So we'll probably come back to that. Let me come to you, Liina Maria. Perhaps you can explain Estonia's positioning around its digital skills, digital economy, and how that has played into your approach to managing the digital reputation of Estonia.
Well, if people mention digital identity, then the Estonians are all sure that we are being discussed. So we kind of feel already that the digital identity as such is kind of our own story. But of course, this is a wider approach, and why we kind of own it in our own minds, especially, is that this is our central idea. So this is our core value that Estonia has already more than 25 years had the digital identity. We are the digital nation. Everything is in Estonian digital. So this is the core thing behind it, that it was in 1995 when we agreed on the digital nation principles, that of course there were many, but pointing out that in 1995 already we agreed that there's always the principle of digital first. Everything has to be customer centric and everything has to be according to the PPP model, meaning public-private partnership. So we cannot do anything alone. There always has to be collaboration and everything has to be digital first. So in that sense, when we talk about our branding and having a brand digital identity, it wasn't actually something that we considered or thought about it was logical. So that was the first step. So therefore, it matches very much our DNA.
I've been speaking with your colleagues recently about some of the AI tools that you've developed as well. Can you give us any update on that?
Surely the digital sphere and the digital marketing and everything has changed rapidly throughout the recent years. And that also means that we have to be always one step ahead as well. And of course, this is quite the job. And as our kind of the brand model as such, the concept of the brand Estonia has been in place now for 7 years. So throughout those 7 years, I'd say that although the core tools and principles are in place, the world around us has changed like 20 times. So we are in a constant adjustment. For example, even yesterday, we heard that the search GTP has been launched. That means that now everything has to be, well, Google is maybe history. So we have to be there. We have to be present. How to influence the AI so that it isn't the proper CEO no longer. So this is a totally new world to be presented there, to be visible and out and about. So that's very much a new kind of challenge, and the teams are already working with it. What can we do?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously you're doing everything to ensure that the messages that you're putting out or that the search tools and the algorithms are finding Estonia in the way that you would like to be found. But do you also track how that search is happening? Do you track the impression that you're giving other people of the nation brand of Estonia online?
Of course we do, but this year we are focusing more and more of the position of our brand. And yes, it's hard for us to understand which is that kind of the digital identity for a brand and where is the digital identity of Estonia. So we get that mixed ourselves. But we are focusing this year more and more that we would measure it as much as possible, and not only the usual marketing measuring, the monitoring we do daily basis anyhow for years, but how the brand itself is perceived and how to measure the brand success. So as the brand concept has been live now for 7 years, it's kind of a shift period. Is the core idea, the main value still relevant to the world? Is Estonia still ahead of things? And of course, in some points, we are making our own lives difficult as well. We've been the forerunners, how to keep on being the forerunners. We've been digital. Now the AI is a new level, and we are very much also looked into that, what Estonia is doing. It's quite a run, and we made it difficult for ourselves, but we like challenges.
I mean, José, obviously Estonia in a different situation to most countries because everything is, as Liina Maria has explained, is rooted in the digital strategy. You know, for places that don't have that core central idea, who have a different core central idea, what do you think the lessons are that can be taken still from what Estonia have been doing?
I always say this to Liina, which is thank God Estonia is not my client because I'm always talking so well about the case study and so on. And so there's no bias in it. I think Estonia is really one of the best case studies for me in the world in terms of nation branding. And the reason for that is many reasons. Estonia was unknown for many years. It was a very established nation before Soviet Union. And then that identity was kind of tried to be put away. And then it had to resurge in 92 on that. But the country existed before. So what is fascinating in 92 is it was almost like starting again, right? I really like the example of Estonia because it's proof that you don't have to be big. You don't have to have the immense budget. You don't have to have all the things that you need to have a strong brand. And Estonia is a great example because the core central idea about this digital nation and acting like it. And I liked also that back then it was not called a central idea or even a nation brand. It was strategy, but it's proof that you don't need marketing. You don't need classic communication. You need is these actions, activities, and policies that because they were so aligned with this central idea of the digital nation, it resonated with the rest of the world. The world loved it. This story was fascinating that you can become an Estonian, that you have a card. For now, Liina is probably thinking this is old news for us. But this was, wow, it was so fascinating and it's so aligned with the central idea. Everyone covered this in the news. Everyone is talking about this. What's going on? crazy country is that is so dynamic and so on? That must be so progressive. And then all of this created this digital identity. So it's a twofold, right? So the core idea was about the digital nation, but also created a very, very strong footprint from a nation brand perspective. Actually, Claire, we made an article at City Nation Place that is published in your website that is called Prove That It Works, right? And it shows exactly using also digital tools like the digital demand tool that we have to measure what is the proactive interest online of countries. And you see Estonia going up and up and up in terms of searches that are not necessarily transactional searches, right? It also affects the interest towards the country because of the things they do, right? Definitely marketing. When I say marketing, not in the traditional sense of a billboard saying this is, Estonia is digital, but you need marketing from a communications perspective, a media relations perspective, in a little push of the things that are happening in the country, because if you don't do it, people will most likely not know. So you need a little bit of a push of the things you're doing. So it's walking the talk. So I always give an example that Estonia is the perfect example of a nation brand 2.0, the best case study for that. And hopefully we don't work together, Liina, so that I can always keep saying this without having a biased agenda here. But basically, it's a great case study that I always give an example. Like, this works. Look what they've done and how it was.
Yeah, well, thank you for the wonderful reaching of e-Estonia, as we call it. And that's actually an unfortunate limitation that we cannot collaborate, because then you are biased. Because you're doing so much great stuff that we want to be part of it as well. But what you also mentioned, I totally agree about that. It was in some cases were easier for us to get the attention, while the digital nation and the digital services, and well, when the internet spread it in the 90s, we were doing something that actually impacted everybody, meaning like everybody in the world, that people want to have the digital services, the government want to have the transparency, the efficiency, and etc. So it kind of been very helpful for our brand as well, because everybody has some contact with the logic. Of course, they come to Estonia and then they are asking from us that, well, where is the digital society? Show me the digital nation. And that's an unfortunate news, because we have nothing to show. So you can only see the happy people who aren't in that kind of public office lines, and then they have something else to do. Although it's been like for 30 years, people come to Estonia to know what's the fuss about. How come a tiny country, well, having kind of nothing, is now a forerunner of digital services? For 15 years, we talk about the story. People come, they are amazed that this is like an utopia. How is it possible that you actually live in that world? But for us, for example, it's a hygiene factor. I always say that the worst kinds of promoters of the digital nation are the young Estonians, because they have nothing to compare it with. Well, I was born in Soviet Union, so I remember those times. But they have been in a pre-democratic republic, lived all their lives. They haven't used the services because the services are seamless. So they are the worst kind of advocates for e-Estonia. And then they go study abroad, and then they come back and they are doing well. We've been now really independent for more than 30 years. So for the first decade, we were focusing on letting the world know that we exist, that Estonia as a republic exists. Then the next decade, let's say the 2000s, we were focusing on letting the world know that we are normal. You can do business with us. We are quite normal people. But since the 2010, as the digital nation was already up and living and getting the attention, then we were focusing on letting the world know that we are special. So that's been our focus, that we are special, and we are still driving the story. But at the moment when there's like the fourth, fifth decade of re-independence going on, we are also asking ourselves, are we still special? Are we now more special? Or is the digital nation also becoming a standard that we actually hope it will be a standard in every country in some point? Then what's the Estonian news story will be? So this is what we are at. Although we are talked about it so much that even for ourselves, we feel exhausted by time, that again, the same story, I guess everybody knows about it already, but it's still relevant. The interest is still very high. We are still unique with the advanced digital society in that scope. So the story is still there. We validated it just recently with the different kind of interviews that is it still relevant and should we focus on that still? And that was validated that yes, this is the fundamentals. This is what everything is based on. But in the same time, we are asking ourselves, what will be the next thing? It's always going to be on top of digital services and our digital mindset and all. But that's a very interesting phase at the moment. It is still there, but it will not be there forever. So where should we trip now? Are we still special?
Very, very interesting. And, you talked about being the leaders and seeing how everyone is. I mean, we were having a conversation the other day with Daniel Hengervelt from Toronto Global, which is the investment promotion and agency economic development team for the Toronto region in Ontario in Canada. And he's going to be speaking at our global conference on our AI panel. Because he was saying that purely from an investment attraction perspective, AI changes everything. I think José and I and other experts in place and nation branding have been saying for years that investment promotion agencies are too similar in their marketing, in their positioning of their offering. And, it's very hard to tell what the country is behind some of that advertising from 10, 15 years ago, because it's all about tax breaks and reliability and governance and all the things that we know investors look for. But AI has made that even worse, because an AI tool, an AI-driven search tool, will immediately give a prospective investor that straight comparison between prospective locations. So there has to be something else, which is kind of a joy to hear from the West of national experts. You do have to have that core idea rather than just that proposition. And so it's going to make the core idea element of the nation brand or place brand strategy even more important. So really interesting to hear that you're also looking at that and saying, does our core idea still stand behind all of that? And does it need to evolve slightly? I mean, José, do you see other places also thinking around AI and what difference it's going to make to how their reputation is managed online?
Yes, I think it will become a commodity. I think there's not a question of not now, it's a buzzword, of course, but it will be a commodity. And I think that all nations and everyone we're working with are paying close attention to this. We use, for instance, Bloom Consulting, we work with nations, and actually there's a very interesting case study already, which is Costa Rica, which is a country we've been working for many years, and where we did an analysis of this positioning about the country for the future, and exactly the exercise you're doing right now, Liina. And we did this with AI, not the classic ChatGPT, but with AI to understand and to predict the future and how that central idea, where should it evolve and how shall the country be positioned in the next 15 to 20 years, and work towards that evolution and not disruption, but that evolution. Like we have a central idea, and then with using AI to understand and to assist us on the strategies on how to move forward. So it's not only from a standpoint of using the AI on their nation brand strategy or their city brand strategy. And that is a fascinating world, because at the same time, one of the things that we saw is that AI is a big BS. A lot. You start going deeper and you see, oh my God, this is not true, but everyone is taking it for granted. So this is also going to be a big challenge for nations, which is the aspect about the disinformation and how AI is going to play that role in that disinformation, because when they read, they don't question. No one questions. So that is going to be a big challenge for nations and all the nations. But all I can see and say is from the countries I've been working with and cities, everyone is paying very close attention. It's kind of a race, but this will become a commodity.
And also knowing that when you want somebody's attention, then you're kind of the trick is to get them on your web page. So this is where you actually do the pitch and sell what you're offering. Of course, we have some AI tools, for example, in Invest Estonia site, we internally use AI tools, how to approach different nation representatives, which would be relevant to our story. So we are already internally using it as well. The core thing is always that you have to have very good web pages and everything, but eventually the end user won't actually happen to visit your web and maybe no longer. So everything has been based on having a proper web presence, but eventually you have to be there where the AI algorithm is picking up your information. And as we know that we don't know about it, where it's actually working and how it's actually contracting the information, can we actually control how we are questioned on or asked about?
And also complementing to what you said, and also asking concerning the question that Claire was saying was about, oh, it's no longer about SEO, right? That's one of the things. But at the same time, it is, because the AI is based on SEO. So they fetch the information. So it's not going to be on the front end. The whole aspect of SEO is going to be on the back end. So the source for information and the way to do it is still the same. You need to continue to supply information and treat it as information that the AI can fetch for you. So you still need to have the same principles, although it's a new one, but the principles are still old, if you want to call old principles that are 10 years.
And also, when you communicate, when you exchange information or your value proposition, then always the visuals are quite important as well. For example, we see it that the Nordic kind of keep it simple and then keep it clear and then be straightforward. And this has always been our kind of presentation as well. But now, if you are only going to be like text-based, then that part or layer has been cut off as well. So again, new kind of a challenge that you can be text-wise or information and fact-wise, you can be on top of things. But people are people. They need visuals. They need emotional stories, and that actually to kind of impact them or get under their skin. So this is a new kind of challenge. If you're only taking like the text-based and fact-based, then some of the aspects are cut off, which we have now been working on throughout the years quite a lot.
Liina, did you have any questions to ask José?
I do have a question. It's very philosophical or maybe even vague, but if AI starts to take decisions on behalf of them. So I'm living in Estonia, middle-aged woman, want to go on a holiday with my family. Where should I go? I like this and this and this. Does it actually mean that people won't decide by themselves, that the nations will have a new kind of cycle because the people's decision-making is trusted to AI, and therefore the competition between countries is only going to be fact-based and all more tense in that sense?
It's a good question. So some of those answers, of course, I cannot answer. It's a philosophical conversation, of course. I think that the way that people will use the intelligence is actually, from my perspective, is going to be probably better than the world we've been living in terms of disinformation, of social and so on. So it's kind of a filter. I know, like I said, AI most of the time is a big BS. The way they say it, they do a little bit of inventing and going crazy sometimes. But I'm not saying this is going to happen always, okay? So it can be very dangerous at the same time, because AI, as you know, and then the development of AI is very expensive, and it's going to be in the future controlled by only a few companies that have this availability. So careful with who owns the AI and the agenda behind it. But if you look for information about the country and so on, let's put it this way. If I would like my son, I have 3 kids, small kids, I prefer that they search an AI, although I don't let them do this yet. I want them to have a critical thinking and so on. Then if I would say, hey, let's program our next trip, I would feel much more comfortable giving them an AI search than to give them a search engine or social media, because many things you're going to find there are not good, things that they should not see and so on. There's kind of a filter already there on the information that is going to be provided. There's kind of a technology that has a little bit of, I wouldn't say principles, but etiquette on how to show information, and creates kind of a filter to that. So I think one of the things is this interaction with the AI and the way it's going for a better place, I think. And this whole thing that you see from disinformation, this whole thing you see from negativism, and also giving this global depression that the world is in right now. So we see that the world is sad and is more and more concerned. And the current generation, speaking of the generation you were talking about, the youngsters, they are very pessimistic about the future. They're very pessimistic. And this has never happened like this in the past, even in past times when things were really bad. And the world has never been in a better stage. More democracy, more distribution of income, availability of healthcare, and so on and so forth. So this has never been in a better stage, but the world doesn't think we are in a better stage. And this is because of all this information. I'm not saying the world is perfect. I'm just saying that ever. So where was I going with all this? I was going with all this in the sense that these tools, I think, will provide a better, and people want that because they want to have this information given in a way that they feel more optimistic or they feel it's more relevant to them. And to summarize and to finalize the whole aspect you were talking about, is it just going to be a facts-based data that countries need to supply to that platform that people are going to use and trust? And the answer to that, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that, of course, you have to do that, but I think it is much more sophisticated than that. And it's about continuing to curate the content and the digital identity. And hence the Nation Branding 2.0 enters in this new phase. And it's about making sure that you supply for the AI to articulate, but it's not just a question of facts. I think we should continue to do, and the answer to that is content, content, content. So countries need to focus on content and need to focus on digital, and that's the principle of Nation Branding 2.0.
If I may only add in the end that also maybe one of the threats or risks we feel is that although we've always been a digital country and always it's been like citizen-centric and customer-centric, we've always been focusing on the person behind the screen. But now with the AI, it's going more to focus on technology, that the technology would be our benefits. It's kind of a shift, I feel, that we might get too tangled up with the technology, but actually we are trying to focus and impact the person behind the screen. So that's something that definitely the soft power and the branding can help, that we still stay focused on our core values and how are we different, or what value do we offer to the world.
And it feels like that's the perfect conclusion to a conversation which inevitably, given two experts in the room, have become philosophical, but we've come back to the core purpose of nation branding as well, which is focusing on people and focusing on core values. So thank you very much for a fascinating conversation. And thanks for joining us, Liina Maria from Enterprise Estonia, and José. Good to have you again. We look forward to the next episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.